Oshkosh Common Council meeting. Please call the roll.
Wojciechowski,
Here.
Hanson,
Here.
Miller, Erickson,
Here.
Ford,
Here.
Mugerauer,
Here.
Palmieri.
Here. And Councilmember Wojciechowski will lead us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We are mindful of the blessings of liberty that we have in this nation. May our decisions tonight improve the quality of life in our city and for our residents. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And this evening, we have an introduction of new city staff.
I'm going to let Mr. Godey do the introductions, Madam Mayor.
Yes, please, welcome.
Good evening, Council. I am pleased to introduce Alyssa Deckert to you. She is taking over as our Civil Engineering Supervisor. Alyssa graduated from Michigan Tech University with a degree in an emphasis in transportation. She started her career working for a few private consulting firms, primarily working on transportation and civil site design work. She was hired by the City of Oshkosh in September of 2018 into our Stormwater Division of Public Works. She since has transitioned into the paving and project management in the spring of 2019 and has helped run several high-profile projects, including Hazel Street, Snell Road, and CP Avenue reconstruction projects. In her new role as engineering supervisor, she will help lead, direct, and mentor staff in design of streets, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and water main, as well as continue to provide excellent customer service to the citizens of Oshkosh. So again, Alyssa, would you like to say anything?
Welcome, Alyssa.
Congratulations. Welcome.
And this evening, we have a transit equity proclamation. I believe we have 2 members of the community here to receive it. Welcome, Dr. Jennifer Considine and Deb Martin. Whereas Rosa Parks was an iconic figure in movements for social justice and racial equality and played a major role in the inception of the civil rights movement that ended legal segregation in the United States, and whereas the immediate focus of Rosa Parks' historic protest was the unequal access of African Americans to public transit, and whereas affordable, reliable public transit is an essential public service on par with utilities such as water and electricity, and whereas paratransit is a necessary component for any public transit system to ensure accessibility for people with disabilities who require it. Any expansion of public transit necessitates further strengthening of paratransit so that it is minimally held to the same reliability and timeline standards as other parts of the system. And whereas transitioning our transportation system from excessive automobile dependence to public transit is key to transitioning our economy from fossil fuels to renewable energy and cutting our greenhouse gas emissions. And whereas the required expansion of public transit to address the climate crisis provides an unprecedented opportunity to continue the tradition of Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement by ensuring that transit systems are affordable and accessible, and that people of color, economically disadvantaged people, people with disabilities, and other marginalized populations have full access to the benefits of public transit. And whereas the growth of public transit will also reduce automotive pollutants that have the worst impacts on the communities closest to highways and other major roads, which tend to be disproportionately communities of color and economically disadvantaged communities. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Oshkosh recognizes February 4, 2022 as Transit Equity Day. And resolved that the City of Oshkosh recognizes that public transit can play an important role in helping to reduce carbon emissions, a major contributor to climate change. Resolved that the City of Oshkosh will be mindful in our work of the continuing racial, economic, and other inequalities in access to adequate public transit and the need for affordable and accessible transit.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We know that the city has some wonderful buses. Jennifer and I rode them last week just to try it out. I drive a car all the time. I think it's important that riders find out what it's like to take our transit system. We have very nice buses. They now have on the front, so people that have a bike can put their bike there, so that last mile of their ride to work or to school is easier for them to get to. I saw somebody in a wheelchair get on the bus, and it was really nice the way they were able to attach her seat to the floor. Another lady got on with a walker. The buses are very low, so people can get on them very well. I did notice that there's almost no places for people to sit while they're waiting for the bus. In most bus stops, people have to stand. The other thing that I noticed is that the downtown, the heated shelter in the downtown transit area has been locked for 2 years. And in the bitter cold that we're having right now, I've called the transit center, the office, and asked. I've sent them an email, and I've gotten no reply. So I'm hoping that we find out that can be unlocked so that people waiting for the bus, at least downtown, have some warm shelter. Thank you for doing the proclamation today. We've been studying the issues of transportation for quite a while, and we appreciate being acknowledged.
I just wanted to add my appreciation for the expansion of a tripper bus to Oshkosh North for high school students. I think the city has made enormous contributions to free access to public transit free to the students anyway, supported by the city and the school district. And I think that's a huge step for transit equity, and appreciate the city's contribution to that and continued efforts to make that program work as it's expanded.
And thank you both for coming out on this bitter cold night, and thank you for bringing that up. Hopefully city manager or someone can address the locked transit station. I was not aware of that. Thank you. All right, we move on to citizen statements to council. Do we have anyone registered?
Deb Martin was registered. I don't know if she has further comments.
Thank you again for what you have done for the city transit. They're really quite nice. What I would urge the council members in the month of February to ride the bus for 1 hour. Pick any line, any spot, try riding it, and talk to 3 people. Some of the nicest people are on those buses, and the bus drivers go above and beyond. They're a great asset I'm not saying other city employees aren't as well, but we really saw that witness when we were riding the bus. So please try riding it yourself. Those of us with cars, we have no idea what it's like just waiting for a bus or adding the amount of time. But thank you. Oh, and one other thing. I heard that 187,000 student rides in 2021 on the bus. So again, another thank you that our students at Oshkosh can ride the bus and think about what it would be like tomorrow if they had to walk the whole way to school. Thanks.
Could I just have the other proclamation recipient's name for the record?
Jennifer Considine, Consadine.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else registered for citizen statements?
No, Madam Mayor.
What about public comment on agenda items?
No one.
All right, we'll proceed to consent agenda. Take a motion and a second on consent.
Oh,
Should I make it aware that I'd like to have one of these removed? All right, number 14, resolution 2226.
All right, thank you.
Still need a second. Second.
Yep, second.
Sorry.
Okay, motion by Erickson, second by McGrower. Discussion on consent. We have 14-226 removed. Are there other items council would like to discuss on consent? All right, please call the roll on consent minus 14-226.
Mugrower? I'm sorry, Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
All right, and resolution 22-26, approve conditional use permit for an indoor institutional use at 818 Wagoo Avenue, Solutions Recovery, Inc. Plan Commission recommends approval. Do we have a motion?
Don't need it, already on the floor.
Discussion on
No,
20.
you need a motion.
You need a motion.
You need a motion
We
and a
pulled
second.
it
It was
separate.
pulled.
Oh, my apologies.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Ford?
Oh, I'll just say I'm recusing from this because of my family is a donor to the organization.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Present.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
All right, moving on to new ordinances. We have two new ordinances this evening. No action will be taken. The first one is ordinance 2236, re-adopt municipal code book. And if I could ask city attorney just for a brief summary for folks watching.
It's really just a common matter. Occasionally, we'll find a typo or something in there. We fix those. The city clerk has authorization under the ordinances to fix those kind of items. And then typically, from time to time, we re-adopt the code book in whole just to make sure that we have a formal adoption of that.
All right, thank you. And the second new ordinance is 2237, approve zone change from suburban mixed-use district to a suburban mixed-use district with a planned development overlay for property located at 2885 Algoma Boulevard. Plan Commission recommends approval. Again, no action on these items. They will come back at the next meeting. And we'll move on to pending ordinances. Ordinance 2238, approve zone change from suburban mixed-use district to suburban mixed-use district with a planned development overlay for property located at 580 South Kohler Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Do we have a motion
So moved.
Second.
and discussion on 2238? All right, please call the roll.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
And ordinance 2239 allows street parking on West 9th Avenue from west of the intersection with Oakwood Road to Linden Oaks Drive. Do
So
we have a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Discussion on 2239. Please call the roll.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
And ordinance 2240, set the speed limit on Compass Way and Transit Drive to 30 miles per hour, and designate Clairville Road as the through street at its intersection with Compass Way and Transit Drive.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Is Mr. Godey still here? It's maybe just a quick summary clarifying what we're doing here might be helpful.
Well, these are new roads, and so the transit, or the transit way, excuse me, Transit Drive and Compass Way need to get established at a certain speed limit. Normally, it defaults to 25 miles an hour, but in this case, 30 miles is appropriate So that's why it has to be done by council action. The Clareville, Steve, that's probably more in your line than mine.
Certainly, it's just a technicality to designate that Clareville is the through street and that the stop sign should be placed on Transit Way at the T intersection.
Okay, so new streets, normally 25 miles per hour, but because these are a little more used? is that-
Robust, yeah.
Robust
Okay.
industrial park streets versus a local residential street.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Nice try.
Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
We'll move on to new resolutions. Resolution 2241, approve amendment to 2022 operating budget for horticulturist position for the Parks Department, $68,203.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, I guess we can start off by, it sounds like you're coming up here to explain this position, so go for it.
Sure. The item in front of you this evening is the result of a conversation that took place following the 2022 budget adoption. I was contacted by Bill Wyman from the Community Foundation, Amy Albright from the Convention Visitors Bureau, and then representatives from the BID, Jesse and Megan Lang. The topic of that discussion was for the city to consider assisting with some beautification in the BID area. At about the same time, the BID was given notice by their contractor that they had utilized this past year, that they would not be taking on the services or taking on that contract this year, mainly for the shortage of staff reasons and same things that everybody's seeing. So we had a number of meetings and conversations, and what we really focused on was areas in the BID, the flower pots, the bump out areas on certain streets downtown, such as Main Street and High Avenue, helping with the design, planting, watering, and maintenance of those flower pots, regular daily maintenance of city maintained roundabouts, and continued assistance with the holiday tree in the Opera House Square. As we discussed it internally with staff, Bill Sturman and I felt that even though this position would focus mainly, their primary responsibility would be in the BID, we could see this individual helping out in more of the beautification areas throughout the city. Leach Amphitheater, the pool, as talked about, the roundabouts would get a little more regular attention than what we're able to give to those. And that's really the intent of this group coming forward. It was focused on the BID initially, but then looking more at beautification throughout the city. So in those conversations, had conversations with Mr. Roloff and Mr. Van Gompel, and the groups have committed to funding this position for the next 4 years. And as I stated in my memo, after that, the city may assume these costs, but there is potential for either another partnership or this partnership to continue past the 4 years. So that's what's before you tonight. I think it's a position that shows an interest in, again, a private partnership with a number of entities. It's something that can help out our department on some of these other issues that could use a little more beautification and upkeep. And so that's what's before you this evening.
Thank you, and if I can I keep going?
Please.
Definitely happy to support this and thankful for the philanthropic support to make this possible. But I do want to make a point that it's unfortunate that we are dependent on philanthropy to fund some of our basic operations and things like, beautification is a quality of life issue. And that's not on the city. I mean, one of the reasons last year that we passed a resolution encouraging, this was during the state budget process, encouraging the state to up its shared revenue, going to local government, to address the municipal services program, something we set as a goal for our city manager, as well as give us some flexibility that was proposed in the budget regarding the tax levy, was to give us a little more power to make sure we're not dependent on private philanthropy to fund these types of projects. So happy to support it. It's great that it's happening. But I really think this is evidence of a structural issue at the state level that hopefully gets addressed one of these days.
And Mr. Mayor, I just have a clarifying question. So this references beautification of the downtown/BID areas, the city roundabouts, and other publicly owned landscape areas. I notice quite frequently on the 600 block of North Main Street that either the metal grates are out of place or there's weed in the bump outs. It's just outside the bid. And I guess my question is it strictly the bid boundaries that we're talking about downtown, or will some of those outlying shoulder areas also be included?
Yes, this staff person, what we intend to do, mainly during the watering season, they'll probably be working early, possibly 4 in the morning until about a noon shift to get downtown before the traffic gets too heavy. As long as they're downtown, they will continue and look at those, again, public areas that need some beautification and more attention downtown. So they'll take a look at those other areas such as Opera House Square. You know, as we stated in here, going down High Avenue and checking those bump outs. Just those little areas, I think, that haven't received the attention is something that we're hoping that this individual will, that's going to be their main focus.
Great, wonderful. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry. No, actually, I wanted to echo Councilmember Ford's statements. But first, I guess I wanted to say a big thank you to Parks Director Mauer. This is what you do. This is what, for those at home that don't know, this is what he's done for years since he's gotten here. Generated public-private partnerships and found ways to do more with less. And just a big thank you on that front for all those efforts. Just another one to hang your hat on. Big thanks to the community partners that came together. As Councilmember Ford noted, it's a bit sad, a little bit disappointing that sometimes we do have to lean on some of our community partners, but so thankful that we've got such strong ones and willing ones to jump in and help out and to try to make some positive impacts in the community. So a big thanks to them as well.
Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Ray, just huge kudos. I mean, these guys covered everything. You know, you're the new Parks Director, but you've been here, what, 12 years now? So, but I can't emphasize what Mike and Matt said. Your public-private partnerships, Ray, you and your team, mostly your team, but knock it out of the park. So thank you, seriously.
All right, any other discussion? Great. Please call the roll.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller,
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
Our next resolution is 2242, approve general development plan for commercial development at 580 South Kohler Street. Plan Commission recommends approval.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller,
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carry 7-0.
And our next new resolution is 2243, approve CIP budget amendment and approve purchase of a fire engine from Fire Apparatus and Equipment, Inc. for the fire department, $771,500.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Chuck, you coming up to talk about your new fire truck or not?
Chief Stanley is available on.
Oh, is he? Oh,
Yes,
Okay,
he is.
Oh,
Chief Stanley, are you with us out there?
I am, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Oh, welcome. Mr. Miller, did you have a question for Chief Stanley?
no, I was just giving Chuck a hard time because I saw him back there. I thought he was sleeping. I didn't know we had the chief online either here. So, no, why don't you tell us about the truck in 30 seconds or less, Chief?
Absolutely. This was the engine that was approved for the 23 CIP with supply chain issues and, demand. It's a 18-month or greater build-out time. So we wanted to get the order placed so that we would actually see it in 23. And as we were inquiring about that, we found that if we got the order submitted before February 1st, that we could realize pretty significant savings for the city for greater than $50,000 for the first cut of savings. So happy to action that item and get a new engine rolling, into production so that we can receive it in a timely fashion. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Madam Mayor, I'd also like to point out, even though we're asking council to amend the CIP. This was a question Deputy Mayor Mugrauer asked me earlier. The borrowing will still occur in 2023. They're not requiring a prepayment, which is an added benefit. And I think that's because of the collaborative relationship we've had with Pierce, that they're willing to be flexible enough that we aren't going to be putting it up front. Did I say that correctly, Russ? Okay, good. I wanted to, when he starts coming up here after I'm talking, I was like, what
I was
did
going to
do?
say, he looks like that he was getting ready to correct you.
Yeah. Yeah, I said that, so.
All right, any other questions? I guess my only other question is, what would the cost have had been if we had not done it this way?
I think the 54,000? Now I'll rely on Russ, because
Okay.
you've gone one question deeper than I can help you with. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, there is a savings. I think it was in the memo. If I remember right, it was like 11. Chief, I might have to defer to you, but I think it was about $11,000 savings.
No, 50.
Yeah, actually, it's the savings for the 22 price is $53,000 and some change, so just short of 54,000.
Okay.
And then having it ordered before February 1st of 2023 as well, it would have jumped another 7%. So, and there's still some opportunity depending on delivery time in 2023, where we could do some different payment options to lower that cost down as well. So, initial savings of $50,000 and, some potential for more down the road.
All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just one additional comment. I think, just point of clarification, because this was a 2023 item that was presented as the original capital improvement plan, we're asking the amendment to move it to 2022 because there's no legal authority for us to authorize the purchase order. So by doing this amendment and moving the project from 2023 to 2022, it gives staff the legal authority to process the purchase order. Otherwise, we would not have legal authority to do so.
All right, thank you for that clarification. All right, any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller,
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
And we will move on then to council discussion, direction to city manager, and future agenda items. First, I do have an item on for future agenda, just discussing taking the temperature of this council regarding a potential environmental justice resolution. Just a little background. Late last year, the city of Wausau passed the very first environmental justice resolution in the state. And I was quite impressed by that. And it just seems to coincide right now with some of the metrics that our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee are considering. And I've modeled a little bit of a draft. I have not put that out there yet because I wanted to, again, see what other council members think about the idea of bringing that forward before I start dumping paper on you. One of the things that I was super impressed with is the request at the end of the resolution that staff consider something called the Environmental Justice Screening Tool. It's a GIS mapper that enables you to look at different layers and different facets of equity throughout a community with regard to things like ozone, with regard to things like lead pipe. And I want to say it was at least a dozen different dimensions. And so lots of whereases. We've got, we're looking at spending some of our infrastructure dollars. And so the timing seemed to be right to kind of test the waters with you guys to see what your thoughts were about pursuing an environmental justice resolution. Councilmember Wojciechowski.
I'm supportive of that coming forward.
Councilmember Erickson.
Just two questions.
Yes.
I think I'm also supportive of you bringing it forward. First question, kind of in Wausau, what have they seen as the impact of a resolution like that, or what would you hope to see as the impact? And second question, would you have that resolution go through Sustainability Advisory Board first or DEI, so that they can kind of look at it and have a say on it?
Great questions. So I'll respond to the first off. I believe this was passed in November, or it could have been October, actually, because I've had this sitting for a little bit. And I know that, they wanted to, again, have the equity measures weighed in on as they were determining how to spend federal infrastructure dollars. And on the second part, my thought was that, yes, it could be referred out to sustainability and/or DEI, or the two together if they so wished, or if council wished. Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree 100% with Lindsay. I think this probably needs to start at sustainability. I mean, that's why we've got these people. So, yeah, Lindsay, that's a great idea. I think it starts with SAB.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, no,
Councilmember Ford.
Yep, I agree, right? Hard to comment without it in front of you, but,
Sure.
right, you did a good job explaining the gist of it, and I agree with those questions. And yeah, this seems perfect for sustainability.
Do I have to click to agree?
Give you a
All right.
thumbs up, buddy.
All right, thank you.
So Madam Mayor?
Yes.
We can work together on drafting something and put it on the next SAB agenda? Is that what you'd like?
I guess, do I hear right, though? Do we want SAB to start there and then move through DEI, or together, or does anybody have a preference? Councilmember Ford?
I mean, I can share my preference. I mean, this strikes me as sustainability, 100%.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, I think it's definitely SAB.
sure thing.
I
Sounds good.
see, quick reading the Evanston one, why you are including DEI in it, but yeah. it's
Do you mean Wausau?
DEI. Also, Evanston has
Evanston
one.
was
Oh,
the first one.
yeah. Maybe I misread. I thought Wausau was the first in Wisconsin.
This was-
Illinois.
Yeah.
Evanston, Illinois, sure. Okay. All right, very good. And then future meetings, workshops, looks like city manager would like us to weigh in on next steps with the facility study.
At the last, when we did the workshop with the ADA requirements, that was brought up as an issue about next steps. The council has since given me a goal the next step with facility study is to talk about the, how to incorporate the ADA improvements. And so that's a process that we've already begun. But I think there's some value to having a discussion about how these other things fit and what are some of the other next steps. Obviously, the 800-pound gorilla in this room is really the city hall, because that is a huge project in the scheme of things. When you think of all the other major facility projects we have, whether we're talking about the fire training facility or the Parks building, which is going to be broken up into two groups, you're really talking about $3 to $5 million chunks. And City Hall in 2018 dollars was $15 million. Obviously, that's a huge thing to bite off, and I think we need to incorporate debt management and facilities. So that's why I think I didn't put a specific date in. I just felt that I wanted to let the council know that that would be the next appropriate step, in my opinion. And I know based on your goals that you've given me for the last 2 years, facilities are weighing heavily on the council's mind. So I would propose that we have a workshop where we fill you in on what we're doing with the ADA stuff, and then where we go next.
Thoughts on timeframe?
Depending on how we're moving on strategic planning, which is a little slower than I'd like to, because a lot of strategic planning consultants are kind of lined up. I'll do it around strategic planning. If strategic planning gets delayed more, probably do this in March, no later than. If strategic planning moves up, I might push this off just a little bit, because I don't want to overburden you with a bunch of, strategic planning is going to be an all-day thing, and I'm not ready to even ask you a date yet, because we're still interviewing people on that one. So I'll TBD, but it'll be soon that we'll be giving you an answer.
Okay. And workshop on the Jackson, Oregon Street Bridge, March 22nd, 5 PM. It's back.
The DOT asked for this date, and we're going to be meeting with them as staff a little bit prior to, but I wanted to get this on the radar, and I appreciated Miles McGuire and the Oshkosh Examiner. I picked it up from the newsletter, that I wanted to give you the heads up that the twist on this time is the state has said they'll only fund the lowest cost option, which is the full span. So that was not what was represented to us back in 2017. That was, tell us which one you want and we'll do it. Now they're saying, well, we're not going to give you a blank check. So I think it goes back to Councilmember Ford. I can see the steam coming out of his ears, because it's like, once again, the state is like, well, so much for the partnerships. We'll tell you what it is and you'll like it. So that's certainly a frustrating aspect to it. I would say don't necessarily shoot the messenger on the 22nd, but certainly that's disappointing that that limitation is being placed on us when we're looking at a project that's going to be lasting us 50 to 75 years. But March 22nd, get ready to be loaded for bear at that point.
Deputy Mayor.
Just one quick question on that, and I don't expect an answer from you today, but as you go through the process over the next few weeks, are they imposing that solely on us, or is that now their new standard operating procedure on other communities, or are we just being singled out in terms of we didn't get along and didn't give them an answer,
No,
several years ago?
it's not us. They're equally doing this to everybody. I was going to use a certain term, and I'm not going to use that, but you know what I mean, so.
Okay.
One more.
Yes, Councilmember Hanson.
Going along with that, you don't have to have an answer right now, but to possibly think about, I don't know how we'd go about this, but would they ever give us the amount that would fund the lowest option, and then we kick in some of our own money, or is that not how they like to?
That would be,
Okay.
yeah. So, and that's, I think that's a great question to bring up on the 22nd. And then there is also going to be a public input session that they're going to be looking for, because as many of you know, especially council members who were on the council at the time, public input was quite divided on that issue. I think it just the two of you were on the council at the time.
Just before me.
Oh, just before,
Just before,
okay.
yep.
So, yeah, so Madam Mayor, you're it. You recall it was quite divided amongst the council between the full span and the lift bridge, but now they're adding a fiscal element to it that's going to have an impact on us.
Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I think one thing that's very important to remind ourselves is we're not aware of who our number one neighbor is going to be down there yet. And that's going to play a significant role, I think, in all of this. So, Kelly, if you could maybe give me a couple thoughts here on.
I did reach out to the broker that represented the new owners and did give them a heads up. I sent them all the information we had and then got them in contact with the DOT.
Okay, because I think their input's going to be paramount on this as well. They probably got the or tied for first place on who's more vested on that side of the river, so.
And it's interesting, the timing, because I think we're right at the same juncture with a former suitor of that parcel.
Yes.
When this last came up.
Yep.
Amazing. How do they do that?
Yeah, but I think Ms. Nyforth has been forthcoming in that. That's an issue even before we got the call from the DOT. It's like, they're going to do something to this bridge. We don't know exactly what, but be aware that that may have an impact, and they were aware of that. But, yeah, we don't necessarily know who we're sending this message to, but there's somebody out there that's interested because the property has been purchased.
Very good. All right, and the last item for council discussion is correspondence from Representative Gordon Hintz on local government funding.
I'd simply put it on the agenda because it was a correspondence to council. It was relevant to a direction that the council had given me, and Councilmember Ford brought it up during the discussion of the horticulturalist. So it was just there for information, points out how state aid is not keeping up with anything, and to call anything shared is kind of a misnomer.
Yes, I'm really appreciative of Representative Hintz taking time out of his schedule to lay this out in such detail. One of the bolded, highlighted items was the city of Oshkosh would have an additional estimated $704,794 in state funding in fiscal year 2022, had governor's proposed budget for county and municipal aid and the payments for municipal services been approved. So appreciate him putting that together and sending it to us. Do other council members have any discussion points? All right, thank you. We're on to council member announcements and statements. Report of council liaison for boards and commissions. Councilmember Ford?
Could I just make a quick statement?
Yes.
All right. So last meeting, if you were here, I got pretty passionate during a discussion of the homeless shelter. I think people remember that. Following the discussion, I met with a few people around town, and it was clear to me that a couple of community members felt either singled out, underappreciated, or personally hurt by what I had to say. So of course that was not my intention. My emotion was genuine. My comments were honest. But other people's feelings are just as genuine, and that's really important to me. So I apologize. You know, the goal is for Oshkosh to get an emergency shelter. We need it. The goal is for us to have our community partners united on this issue, and the outcome is really all that matters. So I'm committed to hoping, getting this done. I'm optimistic it'll happen. So thanks for hearing me out on that.
Appreciate that. Other board or commission reports? I just have a couple bike and ped. Highlight of my week last week, we are at the mapping stage of the 5 Bridges Trail, that is the Riverwalk. And we're moving right along in that mapping. We're still kind of back and forth about numbers, colors, names for different segments. And so far, it kind of looks like concentric loops, starting down here at the mouth of the river and working its way up towards Butamore. So it's exciting news. Stay tuned for the mapping of that. Hopefully that'll be coming up soon. And then just real quickly, East Central Wisconsin Regional Plan Commission, our monthly comprehensive planning for the region met, and that's moving along swimmingly. We do expect to complete that by the end of 2022. And this Friday, the work plan for the region at the full commission will be reported on. And that's all I have. All right. And we're at city manager announcements and statements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Decided to move COVID-19 update first because I don't want to end the meetings on bummer notes that I've done for the last couple months. As you know, the numbers are still in the critically high range. In fact, they went up last week above the week before, so the numbers are still very, very high. I think there's holding out hope that it's plateauing, but we'll find out how much it's plateauing and if it's plateauing over the next couple weeks. We had our semi-monthly call with our Emergency Operations Center, and we've included the hospital regional group in that, and they reported that they literally have no capacity in their ICU unit for COVID. Not only that, but they're also down 10% because of the people in the workers in the unit they're down 10% with COVID diagnoses as well. So on top of being short-staffed anyway, so that's a real challenge for them. A couple of the stats they asked me to pass on, and I am regularly participating in the Theta Care community conversation where these stats are also out there. Your risk of dying is 68 times greater if you're unvaccinated. 99% of the people in the ICUs are unvaccinated. Those are just a couple of the statistics that they've shared, but those are really get your vaccine. The vaccine on Wednesday at the Sunnyview Expo Center is still going on. Our library is still doing it on Tuesdays, and I believe up in Fox Crossing on Thursday. So 3 days a week, vaccines are available very, very easily, very little wait. So please take advantage of it. continued the mask mandate in the city buildings through the month of February. I'm still holding out hope that we're going to be plateauing and getting ourselves in a good situation. Meanwhile, because of the recommendations, as you can tell, this is not a KN95 mask. We are going to be getting some to make available to our employees here because of the mandate and because they are deemed to be more effective, and we want people to feel comfortable coming to work. I can say this is more anecdotally than really scientific, but we've had employees who picked up the Omicron variant, but based on our knowledge, it's really coming from the outside. We're not passing it around here, which I, knock on wood, I'm very pleased to see, but I want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So, we'll be looking at supplying our employees if they want them with KN95 masks. So that's kind of the update we got going on. I'm not sure if Chief Stanley has anything to add to that. Chief, you got anything?
I don't think he's on.
Oh, he got his fire truck, now he ran. Sorry about that. Okay.
That's taking your toys and going home,
That's
isn't it?
literally taking that. So with that said, I also have in the agenda the status of outstanding issues, and I was going to use the area in under homelessness to address the same issue that Councilmember Ford brought up. I've been working with this group for some time now, not just on homelessness, but when you talk about people at the Community Foundation like Bill Wyman and Molly Butz with the Day by Day Warming Shelter, I have every confidence that they're going to work this out. Why? Because they're people who can be trusted and are passionate about the community. They're still looking at alternate places that they can offer up to Day by Day to consider, and Day by Day is willing to take a look at those. Obviously, there are financial considerations. A lot of the stuff you heard last week, but from a practical sense, I really believe that they want to work together, they're committed to this, and we're going to continue to work to get that done. Meanwhile, staff is working, and I'm leaning this way because Ms. Nyforth's been doing a lot of work to identify some temporary year-round locations that we can consider. And we've got criteria laid together, and then we're going to reach out, meet with Ms. Butz once we have a short list that we want to present to her, and then start evaluating those things. We want to get it done. Tonight's not a good night to talk about homelessness because it is a very cold night tonight. Going to be the coldest night of the year probably. Just an illustration that getting that year-round facility on a temporary basis until the parties can work this out, I think is really valuable, and we'll continue to do that. I'm certainly happy to answer any other questions you might have on outstanding issues, but I did want to bring that out. Otherwise, cross-connect control and water service material survey, just wanted to just point that out. We are starting that program that we added a position to the budget because of the mandate that we start reaching out. So we've reached out to an area of the city just east of us, kind of a little bit of the River East as well as a little farther north than River East as well. That's the first area we're going to be starting with. People will be notifying people. We can only go in with their welcoming, but we have to ask them to invite us. So we're doing that outreach right now. So be on the lookout for that. But we want to inspect, as law requires, any possible lead services. So it's a public health and safety issue that we're going to be working on. Any question about that?
Deputy
Mayor.
Mayor.
A buzz. So.
Yep, just a quick question on that one. So that's, just so those at home, if they're listening or anybody's going to report on that part, because that's not just City of Oshkosh. That's DNR, that's state of Wisconsin, across the board. Nationwide, that's, everybody's participating, and it's a requirement, it's not an option. We're not doing this voluntarily. We're forced into this position to ask to come in to check for these types of things. Just want to make sure that it's known that this is a requirement that we have to start doing, so.
Yeah, Steve, do you have anything you want to add?
No, just as Manager Roloff indicated in his city manager's report, this is really a health and safety inspection. This is to make, get an inventory of those lead services so we know where we have the lead services, to work to get those out on the private side, as well as making sure that there aren't cross connections within the home that pose a health hazard to the inhabitants of the home and to the public if the water would get drawn back out.
And I hate doing this to anybody, but do you have Do you have the number of how many lead services are still out there in the city? And I'm sorry for doing that. If you don't, I understand.
It's, our estimate at this point in time for public side is about 6,350-ish.
So it's significant.
And that's the public side. We
Right.
don't know the private side. That's the reason for this inventory, is so we can start getting a handle on what the private side number is as well.
Yeah.
But it is significant, yes.
And I'm very impressed you had that number.
And I believe that there's a presumption that any of the residential, so we've got like 23-some thousand residential units. Kelly, what is the percentage? Of 50, 60% are pre-1989?
1970s, I think, is
1970s?
our rule of thumb, yeah.
And so there's kind of that presumption that, and we only had like maybe a dozen or so folks who have replaced them on the private side in the last year or so?
Well,
No?
typically
Lots
it's done,
more?
yeah, with the reconstruction projects.
On the private side?
On the private side, no, as part of our Reconstruct project, I believe the number we've done since 2017 is pushing 400 laterals.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
we're taking advantage of that reimbursement program that the city has, and we're hoping to get additional funding for this upcoming year.
That's excellent.
Another way of looking at what you were saying, in terms of the year, in general, we've said if you are east of Sawyer, south of Murdoch, and north of 20th, you probably have a lead lateral at one point. So if you haven't replaced it and you don't have knowledge of it, chances are that you're probably one of the 6,351.
And by all means, if you reach out to the city's water utility, they will, even if it's out of sequence and you're looking to get it in because you want to get it replaced, reach out to the water utility. They will make an appointment and schedule a time to come in and inspect. There's no charge for any of this. We'll let you know what you have.
Now, given the availability of plumbers, contractors, et cetera, for doing that kind of work, do folks need to be concerned about the time frame? If it's discovered they do have that, or the presumption is they do, in terms of how much time they have to have that replaced?
The timeline to get it replaced only gets activated if there is work on the line for a particular reason. If you have a break on the private side or a break on the public side and causes that line to need work, that's when the 6-month window starts. If you're doing it simply to try to get ahead of it and get it done while the funding is there, I would encourage you to contact plumbers and contractors immediately. They are very full. That is the limiting factor we're finding in getting these replaced with even our street reconstruction project, is there simply are not enough contractors to complete the workload that is out there.
That was my understanding, yeah.
So we're not starting the 6-month clock with an inspection.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. There is a memo in your agenda packet regarding a amendment to a professional services agreement, a little more work for the William Waters Plaza structure design. That project is progressing, and we're excited about getting it done this spring.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then finally, the fourth quarter, or you can actually call it the halftime update. It's online. Encourage council members to look at it. If you have any questions, don't be shy about calling Diane Moran, my executive assistant. She will get the answers to whatever questions they are, and regardless of the department, she'll hunt those down and get you answers if you have any questions. And that's all I have.
All right, very good. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.